Hi guys, my name is Trista Bites, and today we have a rather exciting guest to introduce you to, especially if you're familiar with this noise. Wacka wacka wacka. Wacka 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 wacka. Jon, would you like to tell people who you are?
Yeah, hi Bex. Hi everyone, my name's Jon Stoodley. I'm one of 8 guys in the world who have had what's called a perfect game of Pac-Man.
Yeah, which is something I have never achieved in any way, shape or form. I'm happy to have even a completion of the first level of Pac-Man, so you're already beating me there. And you obviously are famous for being pretty damn incredible at Pac-Man. So I thought it would be interesting to find out a little bit more about you and how you became one of the greatest Pac-Man players in the world.
Okay, I'll go back to 1981. So when I was in the arcade, I typically played the likes of Space Invaders and Galaxy and all the games that are out in the very early 80s. Now, Pac-Man came out in 1980, but it wasn't a game that I was interested in.
Okay.
I played a game called Berserk, which,
yeah,
funny enough, was another maze type of game with robots.
Mm-hmm.
And you were a man that ran around the maze shooting at robots. And my brother, he played Pac-Man, which I initially wasn't interested in, but he would like to.
I wasn't expecting you to be like, I'm one of the greatest Pac-Man players in the world. Originally wasn't fussed by the game. That wasn't how I expected this to start off. So you saw him playing it, and that then piqued your interest.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of saw the interest in it because it was so different than everything else that was around at the time, because everything was geared towards you flying a ship or you were shooting at things, and all of a sudden you had this character game. So, you know, we all know it was now the first character game that came out.
That intriguing yellow dot, yeah.
Absolutely, and it's with Ghost running around, and I thought, this is really different, but it didn't catch me because I was already immersed in the games I was playing. Now, the two Pac-Man games that they had in the arcade that I went to in Liverpool, it was called the Las Vegas, the arcade. They weren't just like a normal Pac-Man that you can see behind me. They had a screen above it as well, so they were very tall.
Okay.
So they were called Spectator Screens on these two, so people could stand behind and watch you play.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because I didn't really have much access to arcade machines as a kid, so I had a very different kind of childhood when it came to gaming to you. I only really had access to home computers and later home consoles. The only experience I had of arcade games, pretty much at all, apart from the 2p machines occasionally, like, you know, near the beach or something, was being allowed to have one go at Street Fighter if I was really well behaved after my swimming lesson, because they happened to have a machine upstairs in the leisure centre where we went once a week for these swimming lessons. So that was really my own experience. The arcades to me were these mystical thing that I didn't really get to go and enjoy. But for you, I guess you must have been just in the arcades all the time. Did you also have home computer systems as well?
Well, it was very, very early 80s, so it was a social thing as well. So where, you know, socially now you'd go onto social media and do the likes of what we're doing and watch people play live. Very, very early 80s, the arcades were where you met up and you'd have a chat to the guys in school and you'd say, well, I'll see you at the arcade on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then you would then go into town or wherever the arcade was, and it would be a big social meeting. So you may go and buy a new pair of training shoes or some clothes, and you'd go to the arcade then and you'd spend whatever change that you had left playing arcade games. So the scene was completely different, but it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, so basically saying that you guys invented Twitch. It was just all standing around looking at this second screen that was above the main one on the arcade cabinets.
It was very similar, and that's why I love Twitch so much, and watching guys play live on their own streams, because you're almost looking over the shoulder, similar to the way you would do it when you were in the arcade.
Yeah.
So it's almost reliving the way we did it back in the very early 80s.
Yeah, I think it's a bit similar for me, because people have said to me sometimes, what's the fun of watching Twitch and watching people play computer games? And I've always been like, well, a lot of my memories, I mean, they're the equivalent to yours. There, you would go around the neighbour kid's house and you'd all take turns to play the computer game. You would all take turns to play them, and you would swap the controller between you, and when you weren't playing, you'd be watching the other person playing, maybe backseat driving it a little bit, you know, left, no, the other left, that kind of thing. That was the fun of it, was the social aspect and playing the games together, taking turns, be that, you know, competitively or just taking turns on single player games and stuff. So when I discovered Twitch, to start with, I thought, I don't quite get this. And then immediately I started to get that feeling of, oh, that's what this is. This is being back, you know, with 20 people effectively, 30 people effectively, how many people were watching at the time, you know, it makes me feel back at that time of like having 5 people in a house where everyone's crowded round because somebody's got a new cassette tape and it's got a game on it, and we want to load it up and see what it is.
It's going to take 5 minutes to load.
Yeah, so that talking aspect that is prevalent on kind of modern kind of gaming platforms and things was also there because you had to wait for the cassette to load up. And
of course,
it does kind of have that feeling. So it's cool to hear about like a parallel experience that you had growing up, only you got to leave the house and I didn't.
Well, also sometimes when you went to the arcade as well, because you would get really immersed in playing like we all do. But the difference is you're away from home. So Liverpool, where I played, the city centre where the arcades were was 6 or 7 miles from where I lived.
Okay.
So if you spent your bus fare, which sometimes you did because you got overexcited and you were just going to go for that big game, you'd have to walk home.
Yeah, I've interviewed other people who have similar stories of I had the choice of the bus home from school or one more game on whatever game it was, and yeah, most people walked. So for everyone saying that computer games stop you getting exercise, it's clearly not true. Every kid that was playing game in the 80s, the only exercise they got was because they would spend their bus money on just one more go, just one more game.
Absolutely, and that's what was the sort of the competitive side as well, because you know you have very casual players who go in just for a little game, wherever the new game was, but you had people who really focused on a particular type of game, which is what I ended up doing with Pac-Man.
Yeah, when you find a game that speaks to you, it can do that. For a while, one of the only... I mean, I did play various arcade games as a teenager. I did manage to finally get to start going to the arcades then. And it's when you find a game that you kind of get into. For me, especially, it was games that I couldn't play at home because I grew up around, home computers in neighbours' houses and I had consoles and things myself. It was when I found something that I couldn't replicate at home, then that would kind of catch me. So, the first thing that really made me go, you know what, I have to be in the arcades was actually Dance Dance Revolution. Because you couldn't replicate that at home. I now own a metal dance pad, and I can, but to start with, that was something I could only play in the arcade. So for me, it was partly that, and not only the social aspect of it, but the interactivity, the kind of the way you could use a different input mechanism. Because one of the other games that very much captured my love and attention was the last time I went to Tokyo, and I discovered a game called My. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I've seen several games that they've got in Arcade Club because they've got quite a lot of Japanese games there now.
They've got My. It's the one that looks a bit like a washing machine front.
Absolutely,
and it's got
I know
the buttons
exactly
around the sides and a touch screen in the middle. It's another rhythm game.
I've never seen anything like it.
I discovered it in Japan and fell in love with it, and then I came back to the UK and I thought, I'm going to have to go back to Japan just to play this again. But it turns out that basically Arcade Club have the only machines in Europe.
Absolutely, yeah. The games they've got there are just incredible, and it's since I've been there and I've been introduced to games, because I've been in the Pac-Man bubble for years now, for the whole perfect gamers of Pac-Man. I've been introduced to all these new games as well, and the Japanese games also. Some of them are just incredible. I've never seen anything like it, and the fun that people have, it's such a laugh.
Yeah, and the variety of games as well. And just, I mean, I already loved the guys over at Arcade Club. I have interviewed them, I've spoken to them before, and the place is amazing. The idea that you can just pay your 1 fee and everything's on free play, so you can try everything all day, is amazing. But yeah, they also have some quite rare and quite unusual games, and just they will import over machines like the My machines. And nowhere else has got them, and they're not cheap machines, and they're not necessarily that easy to maintain because they've got physical buttons, they've got touch screens. The touch screen is round; you can't just easily, it's quite a custom thing, and that was kind of
machine.
People call it the washing machine game.
It was that's why I laughed, because as soon as you said the washing machine, I just knew straight away because I'd said it myself.
Yeah, it's DDR's the one with the arrows. My is the washing machine game that's like wax on wax. Yeah. And that kind of drew me in and made me kind of sort of truly understand why, you know, the arcade experience could be so awesome. And that's where it could offer me stuff that, because obviously I mean, I've tried with the washing machine, you know, the socks going across the thing. It's not quite the same. So you do have to go.
Don't let anyone see you doing that at home.
It's fine.
It's okay in the arcade, but not at home.
It's fine. Now, to be fair, less people look at me like I'm completely mad in the arcade than they do at home. But, you know, it's only by a fraction. But it's just something that's that kind of social experience, getting the experience of those actual arcade machines, as well as all the retro ones they have as well. And it's kind of taken me back. So now I've fallen in love with a lot of retro arcade machines and arcade games now as an adult that I just didn't have the chance to play when I was growing up, which is one of the reasons I play such a wide variety of games through retro and modern and indie and all sorts. What's it like for you? Do you find you stick mostly with what we call retro games now, or as I used to call them, games? Or do you play a lot of modern games as well? Are you very focused, or is it a broad mix?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because yours is almost the flip side of mine, where going to the arcade has introduced you to some of the old classic games. Whereas when I've gone back to the arcade, the likes of Arcade Club, it's introduced me to the more modern games that I didn't have the opportunity to play when I was younger. So yeah, but I've found that as far as the gameplay is concerned, it's slightly different, because although where the modern games have everything there, it's an adventure, and we're talking about console gaming as well, of course. The old classic games, they were designed really to look pretty. That's why a lot of the cabinets have got fantastic artwork, and you can probably see the Pac-Man behind me. It's an iconic look. So it was to attract you to the machine. Obviously it was to make you put your money in. It had an attract screen, and then they're so difficult to play because they just wanted you to finish the game as quickly as possible and put some more money in. So it's completely different than the modern gaming. But the attraction's still there. I don't think it's ever going to change gaming. It doesn't matter how lifelike the games get or how old the games look. I think there's always going to be that connection where it doesn't matter. They're timeless, really. You can play any type of game, but it's, you know, you'll always have fun playing games.
Yeah, and there's so many different types as well. All we do is we get more things. We just get more variety in things. I love the fact as well that retro gaming is obviously very big at the moment. It's made a bit of a comeback, you know, not just with collectors, but also we've got so many indie games at the moment, and there are loads of indie games that are harking back to retro styles, partly because games now often get released on mobile as well, for example, and that's led them back towards more pixel arty type things. Also, we see a load of games now being developed for old consoles. You know, I have played things like Molly and Millie, which is a new C64 game.
Molly and Millie.
which is awesome. You know, I have played things like Xenocrisis, like Tanglewood, which are modern Mega Drive games. There is this love, and I think there is very much very much proof all around us right now that it doesn't matter if it's got, you know, 8 bits or like a million polygons, if it's just on a small screen, if it's on a big screen, if it's completely 3D, if it's VR. Good gameplay is just good gameplay, and I've enjoyed seeing in recent years, especially just weird, interesting things like how many of my friends bought not only Doom Eternal but also Animal Crossing. The amount of people who pre-ordered both of those games, like, if that doesn't show you that good gameplay and things, diverse, you know, is universal, nothing will. And I just love the fact that so many games are now going back to that kind of retro style as well, and it's introducing a whole new generation to the games that their parents played, and I think that's also a lovely way for different generations to be able to enjoy hobbies together. So I guess for me, retro gaming is not only just a nostalgic look at my own past, enjoying modern games in that style now, but also a good way of like connecting with younger relatives and things like that. I mean, do you find that as well? Have you?
Absolutely, it's a brilliant point as well, Bex, because it's something that I normally mention when I have a chat with people about the old games. Is the attraction for me is to watch when you see the younger generation playing the old classic games, and they're having such a great time, having a laugh, standing on stools because they can't reach the controls. This is what it's all about, and they're having so much fun as well. So they're going from their modern games to the old classic games and having as much fun as well. Like you said, it just it crosses the age boundaries as well. It's like, I think gaming it's never going to go away.
I don't think so. I mean, I remember, I'll always be a bit salty about this. They're never going to have me shut up about this, quite frankly. They spotted a original Pong machine for basically a couple of quid at a car boot sale, and I wish I'd saw it first. I still wish I'd saw it first, and I will never let them forget it. However, they got it, we took it home, and we played on that for hours. And, you know, my mum was a little bit mortified because she had just bought them a PlayStation, and that basically sat there unused for about 4 hours while we sat and played Pong. Something that at the time would be considered, you know, proper old school. Retro wasn't cool at that point. But that game was so good that we were playing it. We played the PlayStation as well, obviously, but it just showed that even then, just good gameplay is just classic and eternal, even if it slightly mortified my mother. Sorry about that. I promise we played Tomb Raider after. And it was just one of those awesome kind of bonding experiences, and it shows that it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter what generation you're from. Good gameplay is just gameplay, and sometimes you only need literally like 2 dots and a line or something in order to make an awesome game. And I think that definitely goes down as sort of like weirdly one of my favorite games, and one of my favorite gaming memories would probably be playing that game of Pong.
It's the challenge as well,
Bex,
that if you look at some of the older games, and like you said, Pong, it's just 2 bats and a line in the center with a ball that goes around. But it's the challenge of that coordination. Can you make that hit your bat? Can you get it to the other side of the screen? And I think it's just human nature that it's the challenge as well, and that's what made that game it's in the mid-70s when it came out.
Yeah.
You know, it was such a popular game because it was such a challenge, and it still is, even though it's extremely basic.
It still works. It just speaks to the inner competitive nature that I keep claiming I don't have, but clearly do, since we played it for 4 hours roughly when we got it. And it just drew us in, and definitely brought out that competitive streak. And obviously for you've got a bit of a competitive streak going as well, and you decided at some point, I mean, how did you get to the point where you decided or felt you could get a perfect game of Pac-Man?
I'll try and make it as short as possible. Okay, so when I was 14, I got to the end of Pac-Man. Yeah. So my score was 3.221 million.
Okay.
And I was 14 years old, and at the time I didn't realise how high that score actually was.
Right.
Because Twin Galaxies, who's the database for all gaming then, and still is, we didn't know anything about that. So I set my score into a computer and video games magazine at the time.
Yeah.
And they published it in their magazine, so I had it authenticated by the arcade owner, and he signed it to say it was right and everything.
Okay.
So fast forward, I didn't go in the arcades after 1985. I left school, got a job, found girlfriend, and did what every normal person did. Revisited arcade gaming. That was over 20 years later, and it was almost like a personal challenge.
Okay.
Because I found out that there was this thing called a perfect game. Now, it was the internet that took me to it, and it said that. And then a friend of mine said, "Well, remember all the massive scores you used to get on Pac-Man?" I said, "Yeah," and I said, "Well, there's this perfect game now where you can't get a high score." So I thought, no, no one was better than me. It's not possible. And it turns out that there was an American guy called Billy Mitchell that got this perfect game in 1999.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, fair enough. It's moved on since then. He's obviously played a lot more. I haven't played for 20 years. So the challenge was then for me was to go back and to pick up the baton from 1985 from the young Jon Stoodley, who was extremely competitive and extremely modest. No, not modest, big-headed. Yeah, it's completely the wrong word. I wasn't modest at all. But
I appreciate the honesty. You were like, I was modest. No, I wasn't. I saw someone else had a perfect score, and I knew that had to be mine.
Yeah, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to beat my old score.
Yeah.
From 1984 and played live, because in the arcade you only played live. But the problem was there was no arcades in the UK. So a friend of mine, Tony Temple, who used to go over to the Fun Spot arcade in New Hampshire. A lot of people will know about Fun Spot because it was in the film The King of Kong. So a lot of competitive gamers went to FunSpot in America. Now, the Americans own nearly all the high scores in classic gaming.
Okay.
So unfortunately, there wasn't many UK guys on that list. So I went over to America, and for 4 or 5 years, I played live at FunSpot. So I only ever played live, and I beat my old score in 2010 at FunSpot. Now, when I did that, Tony and a few other guys, and the American guys were, well, really, how good are you? You've beat your old score from back in the day, and you've done it live in America. Can you get a perfect game? Because the perfect games were all North American, so Canada and America, they own the perfect games. So I thought, okay, this looks like going to be the next challenge. So I then immersed myself into that. So it took 3 years then to. There's a huge difference between. I know it might sound quite elitist, but my 3.221 million score, which is very, very high, and it's a split screen game. It goes to the end of Pac-Man. There's a huge difference between that and a perfect game. Because with a perfect game, as soon as you put your coin in or you press player 1, you can never ever make a mistake. As soon as you make a mistake or you miss something, it's game over. You can't lose a life, you can't miss a dot, you can't miss a bonus. Because the bonuses appear at the bottom of under the ghost box for, I think it's about 9 seconds. So if you're busy doing something else and you get caught out by a ghost and you can't get that bonus, game over.
Yeah, and so you have to be so driven to want that perfect game. I mean, do you basically have to memorize the entire game at this point?
No, there's different ways of playing. Some guys use an emulator and they construct patterns so they can go all the way through the game without being challenged by a ghost. But because I was going to play the way I did back in the day, and I had the knowledge from back in the day, and I was competing against myself almost because I wanted to beat myself from back in the day. So I actually bought this machine you see behind me.
Yes.
That was on eBay, and that was £120. Didn't work. Had no monitor. The joystick didn't move. It was completely rotted as well. The whole base was rotted.
Wow. So you rescued it basically.
Yeah, I went to London. I actually drove and borrowed a van from. I was living in Cumbria. I went all the way down to London, picked it up. Even the guy said, "What are you going to do with this?" I said, "Well, it's going to be restored." So I had contacts in America as well. So all the parts from America, I completely restored it in my shed. So it was in that condition, and it's now better than factory condition. And then I used this machine to go to live events around the UK, and ones that you'll be familiar with as well, like Play Expos, the likes of Blackpool, Margate as well, because it was Margate that I got my perfect game in 2015.
Oh wow!
Go back to what I was saying before. It took 3 years and many attempts. And when I say many attempts, it was pushing the score up from 3.3 million, 3.31 million, 3.32 million. And I've been live on Twitch. I only ever played on Twitch also because that was live streaming. I've appeared on screen 256 on what's called the split screen, which is the final board on Pac-Man, after 6 hours of play, and I've made a mistake live on Twitch, and I've done it live as well when I've been at an event. So you've made a mistake and you've spent 6 hours, so it's just a case of switch the machine off
and start over. That's just relentless. I can't imagine the kind of stress and pressure, but also I guess the massive sense of achievement every time you edged your score higher towards that perfect game. How did it feel the first time that you achieved it? Was it something where you were elated? Were you in disbelief? Were you just relieved?
It's a question that people always ask because you expect I'm going to say, whoa, hallelujah. It was really muted, to be honest with you, Bex.
Yeah.
It was videoed as well when it happened. Obviously, there was a video. It was live. I recorded the game live as well. But it was more a sense of relief because that weekend I played for, I think it was a total of 20 hours. I got it on Sunday. The Saturday I had a game of 2.2 million and the game broke down, so that was it.
Ooh.
I didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
So on the Sunday, August 22nd, 2015, that's when I got the perfect game. But yeah, I was really happy inside, but once you've been playing for so many hours, you can still hear the ghosts, woo, 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 in your mind. Someone walks up to you with a microphone and says, "You've just got a perfect game, how do you feel?" And I was still in the zone. It was strange, really strange to explain. Even the following day, because the expo went on for another day. I went back there and I had to play for, I think I played for another 2.5 hours just to get it out of the system, because I could still feel as if I was still playing the game. It was really weird.
That I can't relate to that on the level of which you obviously achieved there. I think the closest I can get is when I was completely obsessed with Tempest 2000 on the Jaguar.
Awesome game.
Brilliant game by a wonderful man. And I used to play that game for long enough hours that I would dream the game and dream entire levels, and would wake up and wouldn't quite be sure if I'd actually gone to sleep or not, or just stayed up all night continuing to play the game. So I can kind of relate on a slight level, but obviously there were no stakes involved there. I wasn't going for a perfect score in any way, shape or form. I was just someone who was very, very, very focused on playing that game for that sort of probably about a year of my life. But the amount of time you have spent playing Pac-Man and putting your energy into it, yeah, it must have been such a weird feeling to have then achieved a score which you can then never beat.
But not if you play an original game, which is like the cabinet behind me. Namco bought out a 20th anniversary one in 2000, and it wasn't actually Pac-Man, it was Miss Pac-Man and Gallagher. So it was called an anniversary machine. So the hidden game on there was Pac-Man. So you put in a specific joystick movement and it accessed Pac-Man. Now the reason why I'm saying that is because that game has a continue on it.
Right.
So if you play Pac-Man and you get to the end, screen 256, and you deplete your lives, it goes back on to the would you like to continue? So you can press continue. So almost you can turn it into a marathon game. So
you made an endless version of Pac-Man.
Me being me, I played for 11.5 hours.
So yes is the answer to that.
Yeah, well, I've had over 6.5 million points on Pac-Man and played for 11.5 hours and played Blackpool. Yeah, I did that as well.
Wow.
So,
are you wanting to get sort of perfect scores on things like Miss Pac-Man as well? Do you need to have it on all of the variations of the game? Do you need to have one of each of the arcade cabinets behind you? I can see the look of fear in your eyes there. Was this the wrong question?
There'll be lots of guys when they watch this. They'll be laughing so loudly as soon as you mention Miss Pac-Man, because that is not my cup of tea.
I just wondered if you wanted the full set, you know? I just wasn't sure where you would next feed your addiction for the perfect game score.
Well, I think because there isn't really any classic games, to be honest with you, Bex, because that was one of the attractions, and I think it's been the attraction for guys who've wanted to go for something that's not achievable in any other game, because to my knowledge I don't think there's another game where you can actually get a perfect score. Because say you were playing Space Invaders, for argument's sake, my highest score on Space Invaders would be something like 20,000 points. So you get 3 ships in the beginner, and then you get a bonus ship. So say I was to get to 10,000 points on my first ship, I'd think to myself, great, I'm doing really well. It doesn't apply with a perfect game because you can't make any mistakes. And when you start off, your lives only mean 90 points at the end of the game, because there's 9 hidden dots in the split screen on Pac-Man. So I won't go into too much detail, but on the split screen you've got half a maze that you can play, and the other half is corrupt. Now in the corrupt side, there's 9 hidden dots which you can eat. So obviously they're worth 10 points each. So once you've eaten them 9 hidden dots and you've eaten the half of the maze, that's it. You need to kill that life. So you just basically run into one of the ghosts, and then your next life appears, but the only dots that are left are respawned in the split screen.
Yeah.
They're the hidden dots. So when you get onto the split screen, you need all your lives intact, and all them lives add up to 540 points. So you've got 6 lives multiplied by 90 points.
Yeah.
Now, like I said before, I've been on the split screen and I've played for over 6 hours, and I've actually made a mistake on my last life. So So I only needed 9 more dots, and I've made a mistake, and game over.
Oh my goodness. I can't imagine the kind of like just sense of presumably just disbelief if you just suddenly like sneeze and press the wrong direction or something. Yeah, that must be a very, very interesting experience if you get right to the end of the screen before you make that singular mistake that means you can't obtain the perfect score.
Yeah, because it happened at Arcade Club in Leeds. I think I recently put a post on Facebook, but it was a reminder. It was memory from last year, because this time last year I was there, and I was on a perfect game, and I was on the final split screen, and I missed it by 40 points because I died looking for the last 4 dots. I think I was chatting to the manager. He was stood there watching me, and I wasn't concentrating 100%, but I didn't think I'd die. I was in no, and I just ran into the red ghost, Blinky.
So there you go. If you ever wonder why this man ever sees Blinky or a plushie of Blinky and just goes, why? No! This will be the answer. It took out one of your perfect game scores. It sounds like it's just such an amazing thing to be able to achieve, but also quite complicated, and it involved a massive amount of practice and learning to get to that point as well, where you could even attempt to go for a perfect game. Do you have any tips and things you'd like to offer people who are aspiring to try and achieve what you have achieved?
Don't do it.
Okay, that wasn't the answer I was expecting either. Do you have any other tips?
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy the game. It's a fantastic game. I mean, it's such a basic game, but there's got so many layers underneath as well. So enjoy the game. The first tip I'll give to anybody when they play Pac-Man is learn how to move through the maze. Because what you find is, and it's exactly what I did when I first started playing, you think that if you press the joystick harder, you move faster. That doesn't happen. Right. So what you need to do is just try and relax, hold the joystick lightly, and move in the direction that you want to go. Deep breath.
Yes.
Get into your zen.
Yeah, it is all about getting into the zone, isn't it?
Absolutely. The first tip I will give anybody who plays Pac-Man is that when you press start, the ghosts don't chase you. Now what happens is the ghosts come up the ghost box in the center, and they go straight to their respective corners. Mm-hmm. So Blinky, the red ghost, goes into the top right-hand corner. Pinky, the pink ghost, obviously, goes into the top left-hand corner. Inky, who's the blue ghost, goes into the bottom right-hand corner. And Clyde, or Pokey, goes into the bottom left-hand corner. So when you press start, Pac-Man by default goes left. Mm-hmm. So you can traverse around the maze, and then ghosts are not following you. They go straight to their corners. Okay. And what they do is they patrol their corners for a certain length of time, which is just maybe 10 seconds. Yeah. And then they go into what's called a pursuit mode, that I call it. Then they chase you with their very early artificial intelligence algorithms that were programmed. Mm-hmm. So that's when you can run, and you can run towards the power pills then, because they're patrolling the power pills, because they don't want you to go near them, because that'll turn them blue, so you can turn the tables and eat them. Mm-hmm. If you ever see the ghost, when they're chasing you, if you ever see them reverse, all of a sudden they'll be chasing you, and all of a sudden they'll turn around and go the opposite way.
Yeah.
They'll do that 4 times. Okay, it's called a reversal. When you see them reverse, they are going back to their corners again. Okay? When they do that, eat as many dots as you can.
Yeah, so you've got those periods of time where you can take advantage of sort of not loopholes, but just known pattern behaviours within the AI of those ghosts to ramp up your score in effectively what is a safe period of time within the gameplay.
Yeah, it was very clever by the designers as well, because what it gave you the impression was the ghosts were moving to a different location to block you from getting near these power pills. Because the power pills are almost like a safe haven for you, because when you eat them, you can turn the tables and you can eat the ghosts. But it was basically to send them back to their corners, and it then allows you to eat as many dots as possible.
Yeah.
You use the tunnel as well. Important to use the tunnel.
Yes, that's something I usually forget to do or do accidentally and walk straight into a ghost. So I guess just practicing, traversing and learning the layouts and things, and use joystick lightly. Yeah, don't panic. Otherwise you end up like in racing games where you just find yourself trying to steer by going like this. It doesn't
Exactly.
help, but it doesn't stop you doing it. It has to take a lot
Absolutely.
of concentration to realise that just holding the controller like this is probably the better way to go.
Yeah, it doesn't make your corner any quicker, or it doesn't. Another thing with Pac-Man is that obviously I said about the ghost reversing and going into the corners, and when the game starts, they don't pursue Pac-Man; they go to the corners. The most important tip for Pac-Man is people normally get calls when they go into junctions or into corners. Now we call it pre-turning. So when you arrive at a junction, make sure you turn the way that you want to go just before you enter the junction or the corner. Now, Pac-Man actually corners quicker than the Ghost, because the Ghost they go into a straight line and they go across in a square direction. Right. Pac-Man cuts the corner slightly. So if you're being pursued, you can go through several corners and you can gain a tiny bit of gap on the Ghosts.
Yeah, so Pac-Man, you drifting Pac-Man round corners.
Absolutely, and I've never heard that before. I'm going to pinch that. I'm definitely going to pinch that.
There you go, top tip, drift Pac-Man, like you're in Fast and the Furious.
I expect the video to be edited now, so it says, Jon said, you can drift Pac-Man around the corners. Bex, that was the best thing I've ever heard.
Why, thank you, because it's certainly better than my gameplay. So
Pac-Man drifting, that's brought it into the 21st century.
There we go. Games, retro games still being relevant.
You can drift the corners, that's an important one. But yeah, it's to learn to what's called pre-turns. So when you get to a junction or a corner, make sure that you've already decided which way you want to go. Because if you stop for a tiny split second, the ghosts never stop.
They are relentless.
Yeah, so if you stop, they keep going on their path. But yeah, when I play, I don't use patterns for the first 21 boards, so I do what's called freehand play. So you've probably not seen it before. I corral the ghosts together. I do what's called freehand. So I stack the ghosts all on top of each other.
Okay.
Because with the Antstream event of Antstream, they've got the competition, which is the Galaxian Quest. You start from the Galaxian level, and the reason why they've done it is because the first Galaxian. And do you know what a Galaxian is? Galaxian is one of the ships on the game Galaxian, which is a classic arcade game, but Pac-Man actually used it as one of the bonuses that you eat. Now, any experienced Pac-Man player knows that the first Galaxian is the first 1 second board. Now, what that means is when you eat a power pearl in the corner, it lasts for 1 second. So you've got 1 second to eat. If you've got a ghost near you, you've got to try and eat the ghost. You've got to get all 4 ghosts on the 1 second board.
Wow. So you have to manipulate the AI into putting all of the enemy sprites, Terminator style as they are in their relentless pursuit, into one particular location, then drift your Pac-Man round through that power pill and take them all out.
I'm going to remember all these, and I'm going to use all these quotes that you've done, Bex, because that is exactly what I should have said.
I may be able to say this, I may be able to articulate this, having learned it right now from you. I can't do it.
Awesome.
I can't do it.
Doesn't
matter.
Well, I
can
do
sound cool talking about it, but I can't do it.
I can do it now. I know how to sound cool doing it.
Yeah, you can have that one for free, my friend. You can have that one for free.
So the Galaxian Challenge is the first 1 second board. Now you've got 6 1 second boards before you go on to what's called, when you get to the 9th key, which is ball 21. Because you've got Galaxians, you've got bells, then you eat keys and they're worth 5,000 points. Now, when you get into the keys, it's keys forever then.
Yeah.
Up to ball 256. And on the 9th key, Pac-Man slows down a touch and the ghosts speed up.
Okay.
And the power pills never work.
So you've got to change your tactics.
You've got to complete 234 boards then, precisely corner perfect, because if you don't get your pattern right, the pattern will just break down and they catch you very quickly. And that's where most of the attempts are going for either a personal best or a split screen. That's even before you go for a perfect game. That's when it normally breaks down, because you're repeating 234 boards, one after the other, with no mistakes.
I'd be glad if I could do one with no mistake, and that would make me very, very happy. So you're going for these perfect games, you're going for these personal best scores and things, and what's the community like? Because I'm assuming, you know, it's gone now from, obviously the community you knew were just people who were in the arcades with you, people who could see you playing, or maybe people that read that magazine that you first published that first high score in. What's it like now that you could connect with communities all over the world and communities online and things as well?
Fantastic, the community. Even going back to the likes of Fun Spot in America, which is the arcade that most of the guys went to get world record scores on different games. We've got the likes of I'm Chatting to You, you know, on your channel. We've got the likes of Antstream who bought out all the classic games, hundreds and hundreds of games that you can play.
Yeah.
So the community has been fantastic. The interest in Pac-Man as well. When I played live on Twitch and people have tuned in just so they could pick up tips and just watch me play live, it's amazing. And you know, you see the people on the chat rooms and everything. And I never knew any of this existed, and it's only been recently that I've got into playing live on Twitch. So I'm looking at the chat rooms, and it really is. It's fantastic, and long may it stay that way as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of camaraderie, I'm guessing, then, within the Pac-Man sort of competitive community, as well as that, obviously, the competitiveness. It sounds like people are, you know, you're happy to show your games live and for other people to get tips from you and things like that. You aren't trying to hide away the way you're playing it. You've always sort of played your games quite publicly and things. So I'm guessing the community is quite supportive and the competitiveness is quite a camaraderie.
Yeah, I think it's quite... I think it's quite unique for Pac-Man as well, because if you look at other titles, the likes of Donkey Kong, and although they have forums and the community is really close and it's a great community, with Pac-Man I'm going for a perfect game. I think once you appreciate how difficult that is, and it's such a tiny group of people have achieved it. The guys who've achieved the perfect game, they all pat each other on the back when we meet each other, because we look at each other in the eyes and think, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to get there.
I've been there, man. I've been there.
That's it. The two marriages are behind me. I'm living on my own. I'm living on the street, but I got there in the end.
It's not just the two Pac-Man arcade cabinets behind you. Actually, your entire house is just full of arcade cabinets, and you're going to get a perfect score on every one of those boards, and
you need the support as well. You need the support from obviously your partner. And my wife's been instrumental in it. She has her hobby of animals, and it was quite funny at first, because each time I went over to America to play live, she was like, "Okay, you can go this year as long as I can have another dog." Now we've got 4 dogs. We've got 4 dogs, 12 guinea pigs, a rabbit.
This sounds like a fair exchange to me. You have a house full of basically a small zoo of floof and happiness, and you get to fly and play live in those American arcades, and they have some phenomenal arcades over there as well. And I watch some of the American arcades on Twitch as well when they unveil all the new machines they're getting, and that community spirit is absolutely wonderful. Are there any particular players, especially within the Pac-Man community, that you get on with well, or you respect and things?
Yeah, it's most of the guys, because I've met most of them when I've been over to America and played live. So Bill, we're good friends, me and Bill Mitchell. Greg Sekundiak, he's from Canada. He's one of the guys who've had a recent perfect game of Pac-Man.
Okay.
We're quite close as well. David Cruz, another perfect player. Don Hayes, who's, in my opinion, he's the greatest classic gamer in the world. He's had a perfect game. He's not just had a perfect game of Pac-Man. He absolutely owns nearly all world records on nearly all classic games.
Wow.
The guy is incredible.
Phenomenal.
He's the Vikira Ray, I think, of classic gaming.
Yeah.
Who's the guy on InStream who owns all the records?
Yeah, Vikira Ray on Antstream, which is a streaming platform that both of us use, which is one of the reasons we met each other and get to talk and things. They have their I just call him the Terminator. I firmly believe he was sent back in time and got the instructions wrong and is just destroying us on Antstream arcade leaderboards. And you just see some people...
That's from me, Vikira Ray. Unbelievable.
You just see some people who are absolutely phenomenal at these games, but they are still lovely. They are still absolutely lovely. And it's one of the things I think that's helped me be a little bit more competitive, because I originally, when I started using Antstream, I didn't think I was going to play that many of the tournaments. Yeah. When I first started, I didn't think I was going to get this involved with Antstream. I didn't think I was going to be getting to meet wonderful people like you because of them. And yet now, like, I mean, I've had a tournament named after me, which was a charity tournament for Special Effect, which I lost at horribly. I'm not even going to try and pretend that wasn't the case.
Big thumbs up as well, Bex. That was amazing tournament.
It was brilliant fun.
Cause. It's something that I did as well, which I didn't mention before. When I was playing for the perfect game, what I would do also is I would not just play for the competitive side, but I also raised money for the British Heart Foundation.
Oh, amazing.
Right Red Blood Cancer Research. So I raised thousands as well when I was playing over in America, and I raised quite a lot of money for charity. So, it wasn't such, well, you're doing this for yourself and it's a perfect game, which of course I did. It was a personal challenge. But I thought, well, what a great way to do it is just to raise awareness for charities. And that's why when I saw your charity stream, I thought that is just fantastic. That you were having such a laugh. Everyone in the chat room was having such a great time. It was awesome. It really was.
It's good fun, and I find as well within the retro community there is a lot of support for charities, and that there are a lot of lovely people, and the competitiveness. I've really enjoyed it. It's been quite good fun. I will be playing games live on air, and people will beat my high score while I'm live, just so I'll see the little notification pop up on my screen. That's basically just effectively might as well be the sound effect of one of my own viewers laughing at me because they have just purposefully scored slightly higher than me. And It's been really good fun. I've enjoyed it, and I never really considered myself to be much of a competitive player beforehand. There are a few things I were competitive at. Soul Calibur. Highly competitive at that. Some of the fighting games definitely I was. But when it came to a lot of the other games, maybe I wanted to do better than I had done previously. But it was never really about getting those scores or beating other people a lot of the time. Apart from Quake 3 Arena, that was utterly about beating other people all of the time. But for the most part, I didn't consider myself to be that interested in tournaments and things. And yeah, recently that's kind of the love of this kind of friendly competitiveness has kind of been brought out of me, and it's made me a little bit more confident as well, because no one's kind of belittled me for my score not being the top score. People have just seen it as a fun way, they want to overtake me on the leaderboard, but it's in such a fun, playful way. And again, it reminds me of being a kid again and playing games against friends in your living room. And I found that's been one of the things I felt through joining these tournaments, and it's definitely been a very good experience and a very, very good fun way to get back into a lot of those games, and for me to find a load more games that I've never played before, which leads me on to the obvious question. Having talked about tournaments, having talked about perfect games, having talked about the fact that I've had a tournament on Antstream, that obviously there is, as we mentioned briefly earlier, a Pac-Man tournament coming out on Antstream.
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming that you're going to be involved in that.
I'm already involved, yeah, absolutely. It's anything that's competitive on Pac-Man, I'll be there.
Do I even want to ask what your current score is?
Yeah, it's I've not played much at the moment because doesn't officially kick off until the 23rd. So I think I've scored 321,000 on the Galaxian challenge. So on the Galaxian challenge, like I said, you've got to start from the Galaxian, which is the first 1 second board. You've only got one life, so if you bump into anything, it's game over.
Instant death.
It's a tough challenge.
Yeah, and you've already, by the sounds of it, got sort of 3,000 points more than I will get anywhere near on that one. It's going to be good fun.
321,000 at the moment, but that's way open to be beat easily. There's going to be a lot of competition on this.
Who do you think is going to be your main competition? I think I might know the answer to this, seeing that I've heard a few names that are going to be involved with it. Who do you think perhaps is going to be chasing your scores on this leaderboard?
I think the obvious guys that come to mind are going to be the likes of Bill, myself, but I can see there's going to be a lot of big scores in this tournament, and in no way, shape, or form is it a foregone conclusion, because this is a completely different type of tournament and it's not something I'm used to playing. And it's very strange when you think about it. I'm used to standing up at one of these machines And for me, just to be sat down at a computer desk to play on a computer screen with a joystick, it's something I've never done before, and it's a massive change for me. It's almost, it might sound strange to you and the guys watching, that it's almost like learning the game again. It really is. Although I've got the knowledge on the screen, the input is completely different. Now, when you play for a perfect game, the guys who play will always play on the original hardware, and they won't use a micro switch joystick. So you'll be aware what a micro switch joystick is. You can actually hear the clicks. Now, this joystick that you can see just behind me is called the leaf spring joystick.
Oh yeah.
And it's non-mechanical. So it just has bimetallic strips, and you can't actually hear any clicks whatsoever. So it's the premier joystick for going for a perfect game, and every single perfect game will always be on the likes of this. So you're going to see some big scores on the Antstream competition, but it's not necessarily going to be from me and Bill. I can see that there's going to be some real competition in this.
I see. So there is chance for everyone playing that they can possibly beat two of the world's most famous perfect game scoring Pac-Man players in the history of the game.
Absolutely, and there's a big difference in playing arcade and then playing, because some guys have had a perfect game using a keyboard. Now their competition, and that's not something that I can compete with. That is immensely tough. Right, that means I've got a chance. I just need approximately a score 100% higher than I currently have, and then I may be in with a chance, which is good to know. And of course, the as well as using a different input to play the game, like the challenges that we're playing for these tournaments, they only take specific parts of the game, or they take away certain controls, and they give you a very different experience. So it's quite a cool way of learning the game all over again. It's a great handicap, because the likes of me, Bill, and anybody else who plays on arcades or plays on the arcade game, it's taken us out of our comfort zone, and it's saying, right, okay, let's just see how good you actually are. You may be great and world class using standing up and playing an arcade machine, but let's put you in this arena and let's see how good you actually are.
Awesome. Well, it's good to know that we have a hope. We have a hope of beating your score. That would be something definitely to put on the CV for anyone that can take either you or Billy or any of the other awesome Pac-Man and retro game players that we have on Antstream down on this challenge. Personal challenge, everyone watching there. Get involved with the tournament. You could have something CV worthy on your high scores list if you defeat these guys. Not if you defeat me. Let's be fair here. Let's keep it realistic.
Rest assured, Bex, I'm not going to hold back.
Defeating me it doesn't even require really. I think a cat that ran on the keyboard could possibly defeat me, because much as I love games like Pac-Man, I don't obviously have the skill, the dedication, the ability that players like you do, but I can still get involved, and I'll be happy if I'm not last.
Don't forget as well, Bex, just on a side note, the knowledge that us older guys had, we obtained the knowledge back in the day, and we were really fortunate that we stood in front of these machines and we played them all the time, and they were a hobby for us. We'd be playing against friends and watching over shoulders and picking up tips and tricks live. So we had the knowledge from back in the day. So our knowledge is being carried all the way forwards. So when we play live, that's all we ever did in the arcade. So when I stand in the Play Expo and there's 50 people watching, that's the buzz for me, because it takes me back to when I was a kid and with the twin screen Pac-Man, and you'd turn around on a Saturday, and I was 13 at the time, 14 years old, and I'd turn around and there'd be a whole load of people standing there watching me play. Now that's a huge buzz and makes you feel really important when you're a kid. So we've got the advantage of having the experience and the knowledge. So let's not think that we're going to win this challenge, because this is a completely different challenge.
It's a whole new beast, and you guys are kind enough to share your tips and tricks and knowledge and stuff with everyone, so giving advantages for new players to continue that learning experience. We may not have as many arcades and things as we did back in the 80s, but we have got amazing retro gaming events such as Play Expo. We've got places like Arcade Club, and we also have as well, online live streaming services, including Twitch, where we can have, the closest possible experience to what you had as a kid, where we can be, standing there sort of like behind people watching them play, but from basically anywhere in the world, which is absolutely phenomenal. So
it is. It's absolutely amazing. It's crazy that you can go onto Twitch and you can literally pick whatever game that you like, and you can watch people over the shoulder playing live. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
really
for a
is.
mixture of watching for fun and to learn tips and tricks from amazing people such as yourself, Jon. And also, if people just want to laugh at somebody losing horribly, they can head over to my channel, and they can experience the joy of laughing along. I mean, at all with me. Either one is completely, utterly fine, as I lose horribly at all of the exact same challenges. Something for everyone. Something for everyone.
That's it. It's something for everyone. And I'm sure if we try and present a stream like you do, we wouldn't be as good as you.
I appreciate the compliment. It's very, very kind of you to throw me a bone like that. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Taking pity on me for my horrific low scores at Pac-Man. But I will still be entering the challenge. I will still be there on Antstream,
Awesome.
Entering the challenge, losing terribly.
I'll be looking out for your name.
You will just scroll down, and if you can't find me, just keep scrolling down, and then. Yeah, Trista Bites. I'll be there. I'll be there. I'm the little tank that couldn't, based on my icon at the moment. I'll be there, and I will look forward to seeing all of your incredible high scores on the tournament. And thank you again for taking the time to talk to me today. It has been very, very educational to learn your history of gaming and get some tips and tricks that I shall be utilising in the Pac-Man tournament as well. So thank you again, and yeah, look forward to seeing you kicking my absolute behind on the leaderboards. Take care.
No, it's been fantastic, Bex, and thanks for the opportunity to chat to you and to chat to everyone who's tuned in as well. It's been great.
No worries. Take care, and we'll see you all later. Thank you so much for watching, guys. It's been awesome talking to Jon about his history with the game of Pac-Man and how he achieved those perfect game scores. Plus, I've learned some tips and tricks which I shall try and apply to the challenges over on Antstream this weekend. So if you'd like to watch me playing retro games live, then head over to twitch.tv/TristaBytes. And if you'd like to see more interviews, news, reviews, and general geek nonsense, you could also subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. Plus, if you would like to join Antstream, don't forget that TristaBytes is a 50% off code for the year, and we will see you guys on the leaderboards.